Welcome everyone to today's program, School Days. My name is Rhonda Hoffman. I'm the genealogy specialist in a place called the Grosvenor Room, which is at the Central Library in downtown Buffalo. It's our special collections department where we have genealogy, local history, maps, music scores, and rare books. I like to warn people that when you come visit us, we do have some different policies than the rest of the library. For example, we would have you put any kind of bags, purses, containers, and lockers while you're here. And we also don't allow food or drink. You generally don't need to make an appointment. You can come, over in the same hours as the rest of the library. But if something that you would like to look at is in the rare book collection, and our library catalog would tell you whether something was in the rare book collection, then you would want to call us and make an appointment to view those items. So let's get started with our presentation. So I'll start out with the obvious, yearbooks. Before the 1920s, yearbooks weren't that common. I would say when we see those, it's going to be more wealthy high schools. Colleges will sometimes have them earlier. Before that time frame, usually we might see things like graduate lists or maybe alumni directories or student publications where you'll see writings by students before the 1920s. Usually they don't include many photographs. This is an example of something we have for Buffalo Central School. It covers 1861 to 1880, so it's essentially an alumni directory. And you can see it goes year by year, their graduation year, and it gives some basic biographical information. For example, who they married, maybe where they're working, their address, how many children that they have. This is something we have for the seminaria. It's a yearbook that was out in 1905. It's more of an alumni directory, really. And again, we have, you can see this is for the class of 1865. So this one went year by year, and you get a little more detail than you did in the last one that I showed you. So oftentimes it includes that marital information, and some of these name their children, tell different places that they lived, their occupation or their husband's occupation. You're going to most commonly see yearbooks from 1920s to the present, and we do have a number of them. We collect yearbooks for Erie County, mainly high school and college. We do have a few elementary and middle school as well. Here you can see an example from 1957. We've all seen yearbooks before. This is East High, in case you're wondering. We do have Ancestry Library Edition, which is about the same thing as Ancestry.com. If you are from Erie County, you can go to any one of our library locations to use Ancestry Library Edition. You can get the same collection in Ancestry.com if you subscribe from home. There's no remote access for Ancestry Library Edition. You can only view it in library. And they do have quite a large yearbook collection for all over the United States. You can keyword search them. Their searching is pretty good, but sometimes they'll put yearbooks in their collection and it hasn't been indexed yet. So I do recommend, off to the right, you can see where you can browse the collection and look for a school name. So I do recommend browsing yearbooks if you don't find them by keyword searching. Some of the yearbooks that we have are the same as in Ancestry, and sometimes they have different ones that we don't have, and sometimes we have ones that they don't have. If you're not sure where your ancestor went to high school, we have this card file in the Grosvenor Room. So it indexes some of the Buffalo high schools, mainly from the 1920s to 1940, and it does index some college yearbooks from 1900 to 1940. And it does include other types of photos, but you would look alphabetically, and then you would perhaps find your ancestor's name. and it will indicate generally the high school that they went to. So the example to the left, we have a Francis M. Owens. It says senior class photo, Lafayette, page 44. And then it has as a small child in the advertising section. And you can see the year towards the corner of the card that says 1926. And then to the right, we see an example for J. Frederick Payton, and he was a senior in 1921 at Lafayette High School. He was also listed on a particular page number, and then he was in their student publication, The Oracle, and it gives another page number. Another thing that you might be interested in, maybe you're wondering, did my ancestor even go to high school? The 1940 census is very useful for this. So you can look up your ancestor in the census. It is in Ancestry Library Edition or ancestry.com from home. And you can see, let's see here, this column 14, that tells the highest grade completed. So you can see some didn't get into high school, but here we see H2. So they had 2 years of high school. This person 1 year of high school. Down at the bottom had 4 years of high school. So you get an idea of even if they would be in a particular high school's yearbook. We do have a guide to our yearbook collection. It is on our website. So if you go to the Grosvenor Room's website and you go to guides and publications, you'll see our different categories. Down here is yearbooks and school resources. And you would just click here and you would be able to see a list of all of our yearbooks. One other thing that we have is we have this Google map. And the thought behind the map is a lot of people are looking for photos of their relatives. And we do get a lot of requests for soldiers for different wars. So we compiled a list of Buffalo high schools for 1917 and 1941 and put them on a map. So you can browse that by those different time frames. You can even separate them out. Sometimes there's schools for boys only or girls only, and co-ed schools. Here is, an example from our guide. So you can just look by title of the school, and then it will tell you off to the far right what years we have. And then it, under the name of the high school, it does tell a little detail about the particular publication sometimes too. So you can see down here for Bennett High, the Bennett Beacon is a literary publication versus a typical yearbook. We do welcome yearbook donations for Erie County schools, colleges, alumni directories. This is the only way that we get yearbooks. So if you are getting rid of your yearbooks or know someone that's getting rid of their Erie County yearbooks, please do send them to us. We would love to have them. We have this great collection, Buffalo Central High School registers from 1865 to 1909. Some of you I know have visited the Grosvenor Room. These are really huge volumes. You can see, if you're familiar with our Grosvenor Room tables, this book is almost the whole width of one of our tables. There's a lot of great information in them. This is a typical example. So oftentimes there's a section for boys and there's a section for girls, and they're separated out by different school quarter. So this is the for 1892. And so you can see the people's names, you can see their ages, and I'm not sure if this is 18 years old and 8 months. I'm not quite sure. We're a little confused by these dates, but that's the best guess. one of the things that is in here is a column for where prepared. So sometimes this can be very helpful because if they lived someplace else before they came to this school, this is essentially, we believe this is essentially the other schools they went to before they came to Buffalo Central High. So down here at the bottom, you can see someone went to Batavia, schools in Batavia, someone up here, Cheektowaga, and we believe that these are public school numbers for Buffalo, but there's no key to these, so that's just our best guess. One of the other things that you might see are religious denomination, which obviously that can be very helpful if you're not sure what religion or if your family even followed a certain religion. So these are abbreviations. Again, there's not a key, but you can usually pretty much guess, this is probably Lutheran, this is Quaker, this might be Presbyterian, Evangelical, Catholic. Some years list the person's guardian. So you can see the guardian names here. Usually it's oftentimes just a first name. Sometimes there's a little more detail. And sometimes they'll list their ethnicities here. So you see Scottish, German, and some years also list residence, but they don't all list their place of residence. On the opposite side of the book, you'll see things having to do with their grades. So you can see first quarter, second quarter, third, fourth. And then if they're a higher ranking student, it will usually tell an average and then their place on the list. And I'm going to just zoom in here. So what I think I've figured out is in terms of studies pursued, we think, or I think that this first top number is a course number and the bottom number is the grade that they received for those. And what I did is I played with these grades and then averaged in it. This here, it says their attendance, number of weeks 10, and then percent of attendance 81. When I averaged 81, 75, and 68, it turns out to their quarterly average. And I did this for several. So that appears to be including their grade for attendance. That appears to be how they did the averages for that. And in the beginning of these volumes, there is usually a list of the different courses that were offered in the high school, and they go term by term as well. So I believe that the number that's over that grade is this number here. So again, this is an interpretation. This is our best guess. So you can see the course, the author of the book, the specific title that they used, the textbook they used, and you can see who taught it right here. And it says things like how many people took the class, how many passed. So that's a great book. So if you think of this, if you have teachers in your family too, you could find a record of what type of classes they were teaching. We have Thomas Indian School annual reports from 1881 to 1942. What's great is every year has student lists in them, and it includes what reservation they live on. And then it gives their nationality. So their tribe is always listed. Within those reports, sometimes you'll see photographs of the school or the students in the school. Sometimes you have listings of students participating in certain activities or certain courses. So here we see a list of students taking the piano. We do see some general reports. So this is a report of the Scholastic Department, and it does go into some info on former students. So we see here Miss Molly B. Jemison. It says who entered Oswego Normal School in 1904, graduated from there last June, And before graduating, she accepted a position in the Spring Valley High School at a salary of $500 per year. That she graduated from the Thomas Indian School in 1901, after which she had 3 years in Lima Seminary before entering the normal school. And she was also she was a vocalist and had a salaried position in one of the church choirs in Oswego when she was at the normal school. So sometimes you see that great detail about individual students. If you want to get into more school history, a great place to start is our local history file, which mainly covers different topics from 1930 to 1982. But we do have some cards that go back to the 1800, and we do still index things today. So this is essentially an index of mainly local newspapers, but some other publications are indexed, like local magazines, some local history books. So you would just look under the category for schools, and the cards will still start out with just general articles related to schools. Then you want to think about different general topics, what might pertain to your ancestor, budget, desegregation. There's lots and lots of subtopics. If you're looking for a different Erie County town, you would look alphabetical under that town. So here's an example on the top left to Amherst. For Buffalo schools, you would just look, you could look alphabetical by the school name. So here's some cards for Bennett High. You can look by school type. And I think it's just interesting to browse through these cards because some of these subcategories I wouldn't have thought of myself. So here we see some aviation schools, a beauty school, citizenship schools, veterans high schools, Catholic schools. These cards, the other cards mainly showed citations to newspapers, but here you can see there's a citation to a book and to something we call our vertical files. And this, the local history file also indexes our scrapbook collection. Look under categories, like there'll be categories for grammar schools and high schools and middle schools. We often point out if there is an illustration with something that we index, oftentimes we will indicate that on the card. I mentioned that the local history file indexes our vertical files. Some subject headings we have in our vertical files are education, schools, and universities and colleges. And in the vertical files, you'll see things like articles or pamphlets, brochures, that type of information. We have lots of books related to schools in our Buffalo collection, things like school histories, annual reports of the Buffalo school system, dissertations, publications by schools, and I'm going to show you some examples. This is a book that I really like if you're just getting an idea about what schools existed and brief histories about Buffalo schools. It's called School Days of Yesterday, Buffalo Public School History. It's by G. Morton Weed. And some of the content you can see, it's nice. There's a complete list of schools, the year the school was built, the address, tells how many stories it had, the year it closed, remarks like you can see school number 2. When it was on Erie Street, it was destroyed by fire in 1851. To the bottom right, we see a brief history of school number 9, which was first on Vine Street and then Bailey Avenue. We might see a school history. So, you know, this is kind of a unique one. This is actually the Richmond Avenue Methodist Episcopal Sunday School, kind of a little just booklet. I don't know if you want to call it a yearbook, but they do go class by class And usually they'll name the individuals in the photo. Sometimes they give a little history of that particular class. The teachers are generally depicted in these photos. Here's another sample publication. This is a booklet on Burgard Vocational High School. So you get a peek into what different classrooms looked like, the different courses that they offered. You can see graphic arts, printing and lithography. Here's an example from the Buffalo Public Schools annual reports. This one is from 1843. And there's a section on orphan asylums. And I just thought that was interesting because I always wondered, you know, did orphan asylums have their own schools? Did they send their folks to close by public school? And I think that just depended on the particular orphanage. But this tells that the orphan asylum, it does have a school in the orphan asylum. This one is from the 1860s, and it lists to the right successful applicants for promotion. So from their grade school / middle school to the central school. So you can see all these students listed by the public school that they attended. This is another report from the 1860s. Here we see the different salaries for principals and teachers. Assistants are down at the bottom, other occupations within the schools. We see janitor and porter. Another report from the 1840s. This is just interesting. It goes through school by school and talks about the different buildings. For example, this one talks about district number 7. It's a small one-story house, adequate for 65 students. And the number of children in the district between 5 and 16 is now 604. And the district, it tells the district boundaries between Main Street on the west and Michigan Street on the east, and between the Hamburg Canal and Little Buffalo Creek on the south, and North Division Street on the north. So it, you know, gives you an idea. Maybe your folks went to that school. And I thought over to the right, it was interesting. It pointed out that district number 12, located on Spruce Street, is a population mainly of German. And it says that most of the students are Catholic, and they specifically hired a Catholic individual to run the school, and that one of the local priests is trying to get them to not go to the public school. And a lot of them have withdrawn their children. This is from the early 1900s. Here we see a list of the different textbooks that 11th graders have. And to the right, these are some suggested games for the teachers to have the children play. I thought that was fun. This one also has a listing of the different school buildings, when the school opened, whether the school was brick or frame, how many stories it had, what different school rooms there are. Let's see, information on the blackboards, and some of them it says even had a telephone at this time frame. This is a school report from 1930, and you can see it gives the different elementary school districts. So you could see perhaps where your ancestor would have attended school based on where they lived. This is a publication on adult education in Buffalo. and it gives a listing of the different opportunities, things from libraries and museums and vocational occupation, fine arts, training in citizenship. So there's a lot of interesting information. This is a publication called Our Best, and it was published from the late 1950s to the mid 1990s. At least that's what we have in our collection. And it's a lot of poetry and some music sometimes, like sheet music, different paintings. This is work done by the students. And I think it's interesting, you can see the categories. So things like identity and values, it's really interesting. A lot of times that's poetry, and it could really give you an idea of your ancestors' personality when you read these different works by them. We do have some dissertations in our collection. This is just an example. They oftentimes get very specific in subject. For example, testing, tracking, and curriculum, the isolation of Black students in the Buffalo Public Schools from 1917 to 1956. And then the career pattern of women graduates of the University of Buffalo Medical, Dental, and Law Schools between 1895 and 1915. So perhaps some great detail to add to your family's story. We have a lot of local histories pertaining to Buffalo and Erie County, as well as other states, and a lot for New York State in particular, but the New England area and Pennsylvania, Ohio, we have a lot of local histories for those locations. This is one municipality of Buffalo, and oftentimes these local histories will talk about when schools were organized. If you're looking to see what schools existed when your ancestor was in a particular town, city directories are great for that. The library has digitized our Buffalo city directories from 1832 up to 1913. Those are available on the New York Heritage website. You can access them for free. You don't need a library card. You don't need any special credentials. Anyone can access them. And when you go into those directories, usually in the beginning of the book, there's a general index. And if you look alphabetically by schools, you can then go to that page number and see a listing of the different schools. Oftentimes they'll be separated by public and private schools. There might be other categories. And we might have school-specific directories sometimes for different school systems. And also, I don't know why I have a question mark there, I apologize, but there is a Buffalo Catholic directory that starts, I believe, in the 1920s, and it'll tell you the different Catholic schools. There is a National Catholic directory as well, and I believe that one goes back to the early 1900s, where you can see Catholic churches as well as Catholic schools. We have a great scrapbook collection. These are mainly newspaper clippings that are bound together by subject. These are indexed in the local history file, the card file that I showed you earlier. And they're great for drawings of the early schools. A lot of times you'll see drawings or photographs of different teachers or principals. Really think of these for photos, but obviously there are great articles in them as well. And, searching on the internet, searching on newspaper websites is great. You can find a lot of great stuff, but, think of these, humans put these together. There's an intelligent organization of the articles in these books. So if you are researching a particular subject, it's nice to just browse through them. They're usually in order by date. Sometimes you might see things, like when a school is being planned, like things like floor plans or the architectural design. You'll see great photos within different classrooms. These are from the early 1900s. You're going to see articles on different types of schools. So you can see to the left, there's an article about vocation schools and what types of courses they offer. To the right, we see who knew that they taught how to build airplanes. This is Burgard Vocational School. Here's an article on night schools, and there's actually a photograph from a night school. There's a lot of articles on teachers and principals. A lot of times you'll see their photograph. There's great biographical detail. In this example, it tells she's a teacher of biology at Lafayette High School, and she's a graduate of Buffalo Central School and Buffalo Medical College. It tells the year she graduated. It tells other schools that she taught. It tells who she married and some information about him. Sometimes there's articles on different high school reunions. This one kind of gave some good genealogical information. It lists some classmates who married each other. Even though these are indexed in the local history file, there is a table of contents usually in the beginning or sometimes at the end of these scrapbooks. So you can browse by general topic. So you can see this lists a lot of the school names. The last thing I'll mention are we do have a collection of Sanborn maps for the city of Buffalo. So you might want to look at these maps, which are very detailed property maps. You can find your ancestor's address and then look around and see what schools were nearby. Here's an example that on Michigan Avenue, there was a First German Lutheran church, and then you can see the school is behind the property. And that is everything that I have for you today. Here's my email, but I am going to email you all a copy of my handout, which will have, you could respond to the email if you'd like to contact me.